It's the 12th day of August 2024. I'm going to be your host tonight. Welcome, everybody. I'm Dana Durnford. Hope you had a great day. Hope you're having a great week. We got lots of news to cover. We got some polls we want to throw out there right away. Should the entire world speak out against Japan shipping deadly radioactive food from the nuclear wasteland? And you can call in if you'd like to add into this. We're in Canada at 709-589-4406. And unlike my detractors, I don't hide away. The truth never hides away. Hope everybody's good to go. We got a great show for everybody tonight. Incredible show, actually. Amazing. Wonderful. If there's such a thing when it comes to nuclear, we got it. So don't ask me because I don't know. So it's no good asking the media. They're going to tell you it's like a banana, like walking on in sunshine, flying on airplanes, eating potato chips and everything else. These are nutty. If you waste a bag of potato chips in your country, do you pick up 30 million one-ton bags? And this is not a game. We're in real trouble. University of Texas researchers, Fukushima release was so great that radioactive aerosols in Washington were up 100,000 times normal. 100,000 times normal in the first week following it. And another study, a separate study, showed the radioactive xenon-133 in Washington was 450,000 times above detection levels. So think of, multiply it by 10, 4.5 million, say. And that 185, not 185 million or 185,000 or 118,500 or 1,850, but 185 of these were considered an evacuation zone at a nuclear plant before this happened. So what we're talking about is enough to saturate everybody, every insect, every bird, every animal, and it's guaranteed to make them sick for the rest of their life. It takes time to manifest, but we're seeing that now. I was out today, and not a single sparrow, not a single finch, not a single small bird, for instance, is the most frightening thing. And I mean, and there's no sound, there's no chirping in the trees or anything like that. It's just stunning. And everybody's so busy. It's just so heartbreaking that there's nobody else out there talking about this. Like educating the population with documentation is not very hard to do if you try. And I know Japan suffered some serious heartaches. Everybody's familiar with that. But what they done after Fukushima, how can we ignore that? Very high concentrations of hot particles, very high concentrations of hot particles, very high concentrations, like 450,000. And now this clearly can't, this was just xenon. So you would see similar for all the other isotopes, including plutonium and americium. This was the scam they ran on everybody for reactor 4. And so they stripped it down. They built this contraption off site, then they started installing it. Then it got up to this height. Now it's actually higher than what's left of the building, right? And there's not. I'm going to show you better pictures. There's nothing left of the building. So then, now it's way higher than the building. The building is right here where my finger. That's the top of the building. So now this is way higher. And then they put panels on it. It's empty. They put panels on it. And then you can see the building there's nothing in there. That's empty. And then it goes all the way down to here. So it's actually all the way down to here. But in order to destroy a building, and I'm going to show you the building in a second. So this was the building. It's actually 65 meters. This is a 19-story. Think of a 19-story apartment building. So they stripped it right down. And every time I see these pictures of people in the paper suits, TEPCO said they were burning 7,000 paper suits every day. In 2020, was it? And they're standing on steel plates. You can't see that. There's nothing see the people over there? There's no reason to be there. There's nothing they can do. This is a nuclear meltdown. And so anybody working there would be harmed. Well, anybody wearing a paper suit is not an academic or a scientist. Let's put it that way. Because these are you're talking about gamma shines and neutron bombardments and beta rays and X-rays and everything else. So they built this contraption alongside of it that extended over it. And you can see up there it extends over it. See the building, how it's gutted? There's nothing left of this building. And you can see the empty building, and then you can see it extends all the way down there right here. Look. This is incredible stuff. And so they put this contraption over it that extends down to hide that damage. See that damage right there? And including that piece right there. So the idea, see how that extends it down over there? Was to hide the damage right there. Here's a better look at it. There is no building. Right? So all of this is clearly, and there's nothing up there. It's completely empty. There is no infrastructures. There's no ceilings. There's no floors. There is nothing. Now this structure, as you can see right here, doesn't physically touch reactor 4. Well, this is not reactor 4 anymore. This is just a stump. And this part here, you're only talking about 15, 20 feet off the ground. When the reactor core and the fuel pools were at the very top of the buildings. So then this is the official picture up there. So they're saying up there, it looks like this here. And then the media, of course, came out. This is just one of the many medias that claimed they were in the buildings of reactor 4, in the fuel pool, and they were up there. You can see how big a single panel is. And these panels are held there by gravity. Nobody's up there. And then when they show you these idiot pictures of somebody in a paper suit pointing, you don't wear this at a nuclear meltdown. These masks can't protect you, okay? This is meant to lull you into complacency, and apparently it worked perfect. And you can thank the universities and academics and scientists for making sure that you can't have a future, because they didn't speak out and try to educate you or condemn or to even question the official narratives. And so there's some interesting stuff about this. There was a story that came out of Japan where they had released this picture. It's a very high quality picture, and you were able to zoom in. And so this is the same building. Now they got the panels laid there, but as you can see, right, clearly this is, and you can see the garbage, the wreckage down right there. So if it looks like that inside and like this, then, and why would it look like that on the outside? Why would it look like this? And so when I zoomed in, to my horror, absolute horror, I was seeing, and so after that, you couldn't download a picture from the mainstream Japan media websites. I guess they panicked or whatever, and ever since that you haven't been able to download a picture from their websites. And it doesn't matter which browser I'm using, I can't download a picture. After I had downloaded the big picture and was able to zoom in, it was a very high quality shot. And we knew it was a mistake to release that picture, but we weren't expecting them to stop you from being able to download. And so let me just recap this for 1 second. So what you're looking at is the cover story itself, not just a cover, but a cover story. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do something so elaborate? What would be the catalyst? Well, Fukushima has poisoned everybody and everything, every species. And they've done the same thing for Reactor 3, where they put this fake cover on it. So there are people that warned you. There are academics who originally came out and warned you. And thank goodness we have that documentation. But where are they now? Where's the current generation on top of that? Radiation health specialists, children with 11 atoms a kilogram, start to see heart problems. So there was another phenomenon where they sprayed salt water on the reactors. And this was like setting off nuclear weapons all day long. Because the salt water, first off, was atomized and aerosoled and ionized and radiated in these 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures and released back into the environment as dirty bombs. Every second, there was a massive amount of dirty bombs equivalent of atomized and aerosol, ionized and radiated seawater. Now, they knew seawater could cause enormous problems. And the only reason they'd done it was to lull you into complacency, and a lot of the Japanese into complacency, but people worldwide. So when there's this unprecedented spike, now I showed you a study of 450,000 atoms per cubic meter of air in Washington of xenon-133, which burns a hole through your lung and ends up in your bones, mutates your stem cells. And the 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur, this was described, this was a phenomenon that a lot of academics weren't familiar with, but if you go back into the 50s and 60s, they were well aware of this phenomenon of salt water would liberate the sulfur. The sulfur would form a spherical ball, which would ingest uranium, plutonium, americium, plutoniums, strontiums, everything else. But it created this unique property of exceptional hot particles that were very mobile, don't need a jet stream or anything to travel around the world. Because you're talking about atoms. You're talking about something smaller than moisture, way smaller, 1 billion times smaller than a moisture drop. So when they had 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur, this was the radioactive sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. These are super hot particles. Per cubic meter, which meant everybody was, in every species was breathing this in. So when you see these bags, remember that you're talking about 30 million one-ton bags and 3% of the land. They couldn't touch the forest. You can't scrape up the topsoil in the forest, for instance. But the trees will aggregate the radiation. And then when you have pollen, you have all this radioactive pollen. This cycle goes on for millions of years. And this insidious monster is hideous. Excuse me. It's unspeakably despicable, actually. Nefarious, just reprehensionable. This is hideous. It's ghastly, it's vile, it's hateful, it's horrible. What they've got done to us. Mainstream media, the truth must be told, Fukushima is a major global threat to all species. A Nobel Prize winner on NHK, which is the major media in Japan, said the only way to preserve human life is to completely turn away from nuclear power. It's terrorism. Nuclear power plants are terrorism. It's inexcusable. It's a con, right? To call it carbon-free is the biggest con imaginable. And these academics are evil. What they're doing is atrocious. It's monstrous. It's horrific. It's awful. It's horrifying. It's loathsome. It's shocking. Every facet of the story is hideous. It's unforgivable. It's egregious. And Fukushima was the biggest release into the ecosystem, period. Fukushima released the most radiation into the environment in an event ever. And each reactor in Japan is worse, not counting the fuel pools that were at the top of the buildings and also lost their entire inventories, but each reactor itself released the inventories of all nuclear accidents in history combined, like 3 Mile Island, like Chernobyl, like Sellafield, like Windscale, or Mayak. It was insidious. It was just an ungodly amount of radiation release. It was decades of reactor cores at the top of each buildings. And this is why you see these particular connotations of 30 million one-ton bags. Now, we only have, this is real pictures. I'm going to start showing you pictures I cooked up with artificial intelligence, because there's 149,000 pictures missing. There was 150,000 sites. And so I was trying to understand what 130 million one-ton bags look like. It would look like this, like a road wrapped around the entire planet, would look just like that right there. From a single accident, which is only 3% of the radioactive fallout in just a single prefecture. Nuclear report warns of an apocalyptic scenario at Fukushima, and this could one day be considered the start of the ultimate catastrophe of the world and the planet. That's quite the amazing statement, right? Well, it's true. We're getting all the whales worldwide are showing up emaciated because the food chain is broken. All the birds worldwide are showing up emaciated because the food chain is broken. And every nuclear power plant on the planet is hemorrhaging radiation. So every nuclear power plant, there should be millions and millions and millions and millions of one-ton bags of radiation from the farmland, where they scratch up the topsoil all year long, 24 hours a day, and put it in one-ton bags. Because the fuel pools at all nuclear power plants, you see those tall, skinny stacks? They're pumping radiation from the fuel pools up these stacks at about 120,000 liters a day. And the liters are, as hot water evaporates. And that's how much they have to put back into the pool. There's about 120,000 liters in each pool. Each building has 2 fuel pools. It's 250,000 liters out of each building each day. And each liter is, it's a nightmare amount of radiation each day from every fuel pool worldwide. And so when they were going looking for recovery in Japan, that's one of the pictures there, they were dressed in paper suits, and they would throw these paper suits away at the end of the day. But that was to lull them into complacency. There's all of these would have got sick, and they all would have went home and washed their other laundry, whatever they're wearing underneath that, with their other laundry, with their wives and their children's laundries, and they would have contaminated everybody in the households just from that, being in that environment. U.S. states were hit with extremely large peaks of Fukushima radioactive fallout. A significant amount of plutonium released for months. Well, it actually never stops releasing plutonium. Extremely large peaks on top of that. There was pulse events coming through of plutonium, for instance. And the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes. The radioactivity from the plant was measured globally, and it blanketed the entire northern hemisphere. which means every bird, every insect, every animal, every person were saturated. Their thyroids, their adrenaline glands, their pituitary glands, and their bodies, their lungs, their bones, their tissue, were saturated with radioactive fallout. And so the industry said, if the population figures this out, we're gone. And so the nuclear industry, took it upon themselves to spam the internet with propaganda that it was like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and climbing a mountain, flying on airplanes. There's a big list of these, this propaganda that they've been using for 80 years. And it's in all your school textbooks for your children are all constantly indoctrinated with these connotations. And this is a cult that has sworn allegiance to the nuclear industry, which attacks everything with replicating cells. And so what I do here is unbelievably humble, because telling the truth on this subject is a very humbling thing. I know it's not. I know it's a very dismal thing that you're hearing, right? I get that. There's nothing I can do about it because it's the truth. And let me tell you something. To the people that can't handle it and or don't want to handle it and everything else, they should fucking take a walk in my shoes one of these days. Because it's hard to comprehend the hellish world that I have to live in every minute of my life, because I can't escape this. Because I've been at this for so long, I can't deny anything. I've done research expeditions for years, and there's an extinction of it, but I can't deny what's going on and what happened. And I can't reconcile that the world can. I can't reconcile that. And the contempt I have for the academic community is absolute. It is unprecedented. And it's unassailable that this is a death cult. And so every time I see these pictures of people in paper suits around tanks, if the tanks were actually full of water, you couldn't stand there, radioactive water from nuclear meltdown. If you took, and what they're allegedly were doing is they're pouring water over nuclear meltdowns, and then they're sucking that water up, and they're putting it in tanks. That's the official story. It wasn't the official story in the first 3 or 4 years, though. But the last 4 or 5 years, that's been the official story. It's the furthest thing from the truth. The tanks were built simply to lull you into complacency, into thinking that nothing got into the ocean. And that's the official story. And the official story is much more weirder than that. The official story now, as of last year, July the 13th, is nothing got out. There is no meltdowns. Despite the fact that all the media worldwide has reported on the nuclear meltdowns. For 11 years, on the 12th year, they changed the narrative. They moved the goalpost because the truth is so horrific. They need to distance themselves completely from the truth. Because they can't deny, first off, this is an extinction event. And what I decided to do was go out and do the research from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska for 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean and document it. And everywhere I went, I took pictures of the coastline, and at the same time, I took pictures of my GPS. And so everybody had a GPS of where these pictures came from. And then I done that all year long, year after year after year. Not all year long, 4 to 5 months a year without coming home, staying on the ocean. But everywhere I went, I documented it. And I published a lot of this up at my website, thenuclearproctologist.org. And the idea was that anybody can take that documentation up on my website. It's free, and they can produce a documentary with it. And that all the academics could no longer say, well, we didn't know, because here it is at my website, free for all. It's not behind a paywall. It's not on a publishing site, stuck behind a paywall where you got to have special credentials to get access to it or nothing else. It's available on my site. So there's no academics on the planet can say that they didn't know this was an event or caused these adverse side effects, because a lot of media have already reported it. But we made sure that it was there, and anybody can take that information. They can go out and repeat my academic studies, the research, and prove me wrong, but they can't because, I provided GPSs of everything, and I went and done it for 6 years. I didn't do it 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. I done it year after year to see if the species recovered. And so let me go back to these tanks. The problem with the tanks is, and I'll show you, just bear with me. Hang on, slow down, calm down. I'm getting there. And having a sense of humor probably doesn't help, but let me explain to you why they can't actually, if the tanks were full, why they couldn't stand there. The whole story is insane. And you can't eat the food from Japan. I kind of lost track there. Hang on. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, here we are. So this was September the 5th, 2013. TEPCO releases a video of groundwater entering the crippled Fukushima Daiichi complex. Doesn't sound very interesting, right? But when you read it, they're talking about radiation levels around the storage tanks, around the tanks. Let me take you back to that picture. Around these tanks. Have been rising to 2.2 sieverts per hour. So once this is contaminated, the contamination never goes away. So the tanks need to be, now you're talking about 300,000 gallons. You're talking about, and we're talking about a liter at 2.2 sieverts per hour. And which means that it's 1.4 million sieverts, and they're only acknowledging beta. So let's just say that there's nothing else on beta, which is a nut assertion, but let's go with their narrative. That if you fill up these tanks with this kind of radiation, because that's what they're putting in there, make no mistake about it. If it was going to go in the tanks, this is the stuff we're talking about. But so they can't put that in the tank, and the proof is people stood up alongside these tanks. Because the tanks would need to be 60 feet thick to shield you. That's an over-exaggeration. Say 10 feet thick lead to shield you from the doses, because those tanks are not very thick. It is impossible to shield you from the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the X-rays, the gamma shines. And so wearing paper suits at a nuclear meltdown is not something any nuclear scientist is going to do. You couldn't drag them there kicking and screaming. You couldn't get them out of the car and claw your eyes out, because they know better. So everything is going directly into the ocean. And now the other side of that narrative is that they're filtering everything in this so-called ELP system, right? But clearly the ELP system doesn't exist. Just let me walk you gently through that nut job, because that's part of this equation that you need in order to be able to articulate it yourself, right? So first this story, 2014. The advanced liquid processing system has yet to function. It wasn't even finished in 2014, or it was the middle of 2015 by the time they finished building it. And I usually show that. I can come back and show it to you in a second. TEPCO, August the 12th, 2014, TEPCO to abandon the Arriva system, which was the French filtration system. And for this entire time, it was unused and kept out of. So one of their numbers is 100 million atoms per cubic centimeter for the sludge in the tanks, is what they're talking about. Now, if that was true, if the tanks or anything else has this kind of numbers, That's a that will cause a criticality, a chain reaction. And not only that, like if you fill these tanks up with the numbers that we're talking about, then when it settles down over the next couple of days, you have all the gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas gathered up on the bottom. It's going to reflect around with the neutrons. That's going to cause a criticality. That's going to burn a hole right through the bottom of the tank or the side of the tank. Now with the 2.2 sieverts per liter that they talked about originally, if that's spilled, you will never walk around this site again, because you're talking about the accumulation per liter. You're talking about lethal doses just running past this spot. But even if they weren't there, like they're proof, when you look at the signs, they're proof that the tanks are empty. Now, they might have filled the tanks up with fresh water, but there's zero possibility they're going to fill it up with water that can cause a criticality, and will, and would, and has in other nuclear plants where they had tried the same thing, like Moyak, for instance. TEPCO says the groundwater bypass operation not having effect. This is July 29, 2014. They were forced to admit that the groundwater bypass operation is failing to reduce the tons of water from entering the buildings or the sites. They failed to deliver on the promise to install a fence, because how can you build a fence to stop radiation? It's the most ludicrous assertion conceivable, and they were hoping to get $1 billion out of it. But of course, if you built the fence and it did work, you can't get back on the site because everything is liquefaction, right? It's the same thing with the ice wall. And why would you build an ice wall that allegedly had 260,000 people? So when you divide that into the money they allocated to build the ice wall, there was no money left over to build the ice wall if you gave everybody $1,144. Typical missed the ice wall. So why would you build an ice wall instead of a real wall? What was the point of something like that? A total of 260,000 people worked on creating the ice wall. Look up the money that they spent on the ice wall and divide it by 260,000 people. 260,000 people. That meant every day they had 260,000 paper suits they had to get rid of. Just do your math on these numbers. And what you learn right quite quickly is that all of their assertions are simply impossible assertions. EU Energy Commissioner called Fukushima an apocalypse, and that was the appropriate word for it. And that word will never disappear if you're honest. France says Japan lost control. The French should leave the country. Not just Fukushima prefecture, but the country. And France, of course, is the lowest form of life when it comes to nuclear. So if they tell you to leave the country, it's insidiously bad. The Swiss embassy evacuated Tokyo, 240 kilometers away, because of Fukushima. Nuclear report warns of an apocalyptic scenario at Fukushima in the weeks ahead. This could one day be considered the start of the ultimate catastrophe of the world and the planet. And that was the appropriate connotations. South Korea called Japan's handling of Fukushima incompetent. That particular administration, that was an appropriate response. Former Japan official, unstoppable contamination of the Pacific Ocean, but it's also the biosphere, the ecosystem itself. It's seriously menacing the U.S. West Coast. Well, it menaces the entire ecosystem, every pond, every body of water on the entire planet, and every farmer's field. But Japan in particular is going to be just brutal. Fukushima is now undeniably a global security issue and it can't be brought under control. Waves of radiation were 10 times more than the entire world's nuclear tests combined. 10,000 times more still wouldn't do it justice. You got to think about, at the top of each building was around 8 reactor cores because they don't have a repository in Japan, let alone anywhere else on the planet. So like everywhere else on the planet, their decades of reactor cores are kept in their fuel pools. And in Japan's case of the boiling water reactors, the fuel pools are at the very top of the building. And as I showed you at the beginning, the buildings are gone. So they didn't abandon all these communities because it's like a banana. Will you give me that? They didn't abandon all these communities because it's like a potato chip. Will you give me that much? Because if that's true, then everybody that ever told you that nuclear fallout is like a banana, a potato chip, should be held accountable. They should lose their degrees and should be served, maybe, if not the rest of their lives, in jail. And for the majority of them, the death penalty should be applied to egregious, their hideous, their monstrous crimes against all species and against the biosphere. And how can we have a future with this assassin, which is nuclear fallout, is an assassin, assassinates everything with replicating cells. 40 million atoms of iodine-131. So let's forget about all the other isotopes, because it's not just iodine-131 is going to bioaccumulate. In a single bed of kelp off Southern California, and the amount was most likely higher. Environmental science and technologies. So there was a lot of people trying to warn you for the first few years, but they were quickly silenced, or they were just ran off. They lost their jobs. Tokyo neighbors ceasing approaching levels found in Fukushima. The Chiba incinerator dust. Incinerator dust is worse than a dirty bomb per kilogram. So if there's that much left per kilogram, they would have cooked off probably 50 times that much back into the ecosystem when they burnt it. And you can't destroy radiation in an incinerator or with acid or anything else. It can't be destroyed. It can't be destroyed. And whatever's released into the ecosystem bioaccumulates in the ecosystem and is here forever for the most part. So in Japan, they can't get rid of the sewage. They can't get rid of the garbage because it's so radioactive. And then when they do incinerate it, they can't get rid of the ashes because it's so radioactive. They can't get rid of the water filtration, the sediment from the water filtration plants for the communities. Because the filtration that would normally be used for farmers' fields and for, this was really good sediment, right? Very rich. Is now so radioactive you can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of the sewage. You can't get rid of the garbage. You can't get rid of the ashes from the incinerators. You can't get rid of the sediment from the water filtration facilities. And the numbers we're talking about just in the first year are just like 50,000 one-ton bags for one big area. Is absurd. That you can't get rid of because it's so radioactive. So it means all the water pipes are radioactive. It means all the washing machines are radioactive. It means all the dinner plates and cups and glasses and forks and knives are radioactive. All your laundry is radioactive in that country. You cannot escape that in Japan. And we can quantify those assertions many different ways, not just the 30 million one-ton bags. But we have the numbers from right across the country, and every once in a while we'll do a whole presentation just on the numbers across the country. You don't want to eat the food, and that food should never be shipped worldwide. Iodine-131 levels rise 350 kilometers from the Fukushima to sewage plant. High levels of radioactive material in Tokyo, 170,000 atoms a kilogram in the slag. Well, a Becquerel is a pulse of energy. And a pulse of energy is like an explosion. It's like you got a balloon, and the balloon is full of glitter, say, right? And then you pop the balloon, the glitter goes in every single direction, right? Well, that's what the explosions of the anthropogenic man-made atoms are doing. They're exploding in every direction. And I disrespect all the academics and scientists and universities worldwide and the anti-nuclear, like Greenpeace and the rest of them, because none of them have helped me. None of them. When I'm actually, and they know, anybody that is in the academic community knows what this topic is about, knows I'm 100% honest 100% of the time. Because you can't run an educational program by not being accurate and honest. And so there's a hell of a lot of weight on my shoulders every time I do one of these presentations. And I try to do as many as I can in desperation. And the world won't come to a senses because the nuclear industry has so much censorship available at its fingertips. It's so easy to censor somebody. And it's so heartbreaking that is the path they've chosen. They chose the most cowardly path imaginable. And what I'm doing is it's unimaginably expensive to do anything. And I'm not even running on fumes anymore. I'm empty. I don't have anything to run on. But I still have that passion. I still have that energy. I still have that drive. I still have that hunger for justice, the hunger to help people, the insects, the birds, to try to salvage something for a future generation. I have this, and I don't know how to articulate it, which is unusual for me, trust me, but I don't really know how to articulate what I'm capable of, first off. If I was given the opportunity, like if I was given the funds that Greenpeace is given, we could have some kind of a future because we can come to terms with it. We can come up with solutions. There's billions of people, and if the world was informed, we'll come up with solutions. One of them would be to imprison everybody in the industry that hid this away from the population and stopped us from having a future. Destroyed everybody's and every species' future. And I never stopped trying. And despite the fact that they have worked relentlessly to defund me, succeeded. Beyond their wildest expectations, probably. And they laugh about it. They take great joy in taking away the only person out there who has actually went out and done the research, actually produced educational programs 5 days a week that are my work, as far as I can tell, and I've been told many times, is incontestably honest and accuracy. And because the more they step on me, the more articulate I'll become, the more honest I am. Well, I'm always honest, but the more I'm able to articulatedly explain the story. See, I don't have a lack of patience, and I don't have a lack of will. I have a lack of funding to be able to do what needs to be done. And in reality, I should have like a 300-foot ship out there on the ocean with a bunch of real people doing the work. I should be interviewing the academic community that is willing to speak out. And I should be able to sell and produce and sell product that would be helpful to people to help them mitigate some of the adverse effects, and then take that money and invest it in research of coming up with solutions for water filtration, etc., right? For farms, for people, homes, and everything else. See, this industry has never been challenged. In its entire legacy, I can't find a challenge, and I find a lot of propaganda, all propaganda. There's tons of books out there to lie to you. There is a couple out there over the years that are very good books. They're very rare. Less than a handful that I can think of. And a lot of them were infiltrated. But the nuclear industry cannot infiltrate what I do. It's a one-man operation. When, like, the equipment that I'm running is the same equipment you would find at a TV studio. Just I buy it from the same supplier, all of it. And typically they would have 5 people working that equipment. I have to do everything myself. I had to learn everything myself. And the learning curve was about 9 months to learn how to use all the equipment. It was impossible to find anybody to teach it to you. They have computer specialists. They pay $100,000 a year to flush it all out, and they're incredible educations, and that's what they do. I didn't have those luxuries. And everything I've done is so humble, it's heartbreaking. I'm not bragging, I'm stating a fact. That this world has a right to exist. That you have a right not to be poisoned. That the insects and birds, and there's, I went. I got this one spot where every time I go past it, I'll go in and check. And again today, there's no birds there. There's no birds in the forest. And there's a lot of people hang out there. So there's all kinds of food and chips and all kinds of stuff being dropped all over the place, where birds would be in there scooping this stuff up, right? And there's nothing there. It's actually a really paradise spot too. And there's no little birds. There's no finches. There's no sparrows. No robins. There's no migratory birds. And so we're in real problems. And we're not doing this because it's fun. Clearly, this is not fun what I'm doing. Clearly, the censorship against this story is unbelievable. What if I got here tonight? 18 people, is it? 18 people on a show I've been doing for over a decade. 19 people. On a show I've been doing for over a decade. Now, my other site had 24,800 subscribers for 5 years. I never lost one, never gained one. And when I was out and discovered there was no spiders in the woods, they took down my site when I was 400 miles out into the woods by myself. If that's not a coward, what is it? If that's not a degenerate, what was it? And they don't come out and say, ha, got you, Dana. They hide away like real cowards. They meet all of the criteria of a coward. That's the one most amazing thing I see with these people. They have an unlimited budget to shit on me, to attack me, to destroy me. And I don't have a budget to fight back with. But so I run an educational program to educate the population so they can fight back. And so every time they try to stop me and everything they do, and they're very successful at stopping me from doing a lot of things, but we were able to burn it back in their faces by having an educated population of the people that are looking at this subject. And a lot of that is going to be policymakers and investors. And so we have scuttled the industry. There's no doubt about it. And this industry needs to be scuttled. But we need to come up with solutions. And we are never going to have an opportunity unless the world makes a stand. And so tell me who it is you want to support, because you're not supporting me. So tell me who you want to support, and I'll give them all the fucking equipment I got. I'll give them the boat. I'll give them everything I got so they can go to war for you. Because somebody needs to go to war. And it's time to stop fucking around. You're wasting time we haven't gotten, we lost a long time ago. It's time to go to war. You need to go to war against these disgusting parasites. These sadistic, cowardly parasites that are sucking the life out of your planet and sitting there and letting them get away with it is one of the biggest crimes imaginable. Sitting there and pretending that you can't do nothing is another crime, because you have no concept of how powerful your voice is. You're the most powerful voice on this planet is you. And they're terrified of your voice. Imagine your sewage is so radioactive it's considered a dirty bomb. Every time you flush the toilet, that's a dirty bomb. Because that's what it is. And so when are we going to fight back? When are we going to do it? I would love to do it. Give me the opportunity and I'll fucking do it. And there'll be nobody on the planet can do it better than I'll do it. I can guarantee you that. I'll go to war like you can't even conceive. And Greenpeace has blocked me on every one of their sites worldwide. Every one of their Twitter accounts have fucking blocked me. Because I showed them that is not real. So they knocked it down and blocked me. Highly radioactive sewage found 30 plus miles from Fukushima. Cesium, what about the uranium? What about the plutonium? What about the americium and neptunium? What about the 100 to 1 strontium levels? For every cesium-137, there's going to be 100 strontium-90s. Cesium levels in the sewage at 334,000 atoms per kilogram is unimaginable. It's inconceivable. Pre-Fukushima, that would be absolutely considered inconceivable. Now it's the normal. The evidence is so overwhelming and that the world is still in denial. If you got 2 houses, sell one of them, give me half the money. If you got 3 vehicles, sell one and give me half that money. So I can go to fucking war. Because you better go to war. I can tell you that right now. You better go to war. You need to get in their fucking faces. And we've provided you with the documentation that is unassailable. It's incontestable, and this is not a game. I am not in this for fucking fun. I am here to go to war. I was put here to go to war against this ridiculous coward industry. This is a coward. This is an industry whose entire legacy is predicated upon cowardness and deceit and deception and genocide and omnicide, attacking every species, attacking your air. They have contaminated your fucking air. They contaminated your water. They contaminated your ecosystem, your forest, your fresh water, your salt water. At what point are you going to fight back? Just because you can't perceive it. You can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it doesn't mean it's not happening. They didn't pick up 30 million one-ton bags because it's like a fucking banana. And I apologize right here, right now, because I just realized I'm swearing again. But I want to go to war. I am tired of playing games. I want to go to war against this industry. This is an insane industry, and it needs to be held accountable. Not holding it accountable is a bigger crime than what they're fucking doing to you. Why isn't the world going to war? You go to war against everything else, but you won't go to war against the most insidious monster imaginable, the nuclear industry. We lost the whole summer because I can't fucking afford to go to war. Ah! Why can't I go to war? Because the nuclear industry has driven everybody away. You go and look up my name, Dana Durnford, you'll find the most vile things imaginable, all put there by the nuclear industry and gobbled up by anybody trying to wrap their mind around, oh, Dana's a fucking pedophile. That's a child molester over there. He's a scammer. You'll find it all over the internet. You can't escape it. That's the stuff they're going to feed you. And when you find me, what you find out is I'm 100% honest 100% of the time. And now, not a fucking 10,000 of these nuclear scientists don't have the courage that I got put together. They don't even have a fucking percent of the courage that I'm willing to go forward. I'll never take a step backwards. I'll always take fucking 10 steps forward when every time they butt heads. I don't take steps backwards. That's been my motto for over 22 years. I never take a step backwards. And now we have the most threatening event in history. And we're what? We're just going to pretend this is not fucking happening? We're going to let them walk while they exterminate you and make everybody sick? The press watches as the government dumps the radioactive waste into Tokyo Bay. Do you get it? Radioactive sludge from sewage plants. Oh, we can't get rid of it, so let's just dump it in the ocean. My patience is run thin. I think that the whole world should go to war immediately against this nuclear industry. Every nuclear scientist on the planet should be afraid to walk out their fucking door. Because the world is going to be looking for them. Highly radioactive glass. Highly radioactive fallout rained on Tokyo and Canada and United States and every other fucking square inch of this planet. Fukushima nuclear fuel with 500 trillion atoms a kilogram found. Significant consequences for human health. If the significant consequences for human health is devastating consequences for insects and birds and mammals and animals and every other species, including just the bacteria and the fungus. Scientists, this changes understanding of the disaster. Our ideas of health implications should change. So this tsunami ran through these reactors, but it also ran through the common spent fuel pool, which was right behind reactor 3 and reactor 4. So right behind this over here, on the same street, the same level, the same height, the same fucking piece of property, at the same height, you can throw rocks across the street and hit the common spent fuel pool, which had decades of reactor cores from 6 reactors. The tsunami ran through that too. And he covered it up. This is the plutonium mixed oxide reactor 3. Actually, James Lucid sent me a couple of songs last night that cheered me up. And he was mentioning the songs. I don't know how he done it. It was brilliant. And the songs talk about the plutonium MOX reactor 3. It's unbelievable, the work that man is able to do. And I haven't had a chance. I've been gone all day. I only been home for 2 hours before we started the show. I got to download those songs, right? And I got to try to figure out a way to use them. This was a Medusa. This was the worst of the worst case scenario. This is 2 billion. This stuff in a normal meltdown, not that a meltdown is normal, is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. This is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. This is reclaimed uranium, reclaimed plutonium. Should never, under any circumstances, exist. And because the industry has never been held accountable for a single second in its entire inception, it has turned into the most evil and maniacal and sadistic creatures that have no human attributes whatsoever. And so when this cooks off 200,000 degrees hotter than a typical nuclear meltdown, which is insidious temperatures. And that's why you see this kind of devastation. The fuel pool's gone in the blink of an eye. So what they done was they scrapped it all the way down almost to the ground. They built this contraption around it. It doesn't physically touch it. And then they claimed they were inside of it and they were taking fuels out of the building when all the fuel is gone, is cooked off immediately. This is not an industry that should be able to do that. There's nothing on the planet should be allowed to do this or able to do it and get away with it. There's nothing. The only way the nuclear industry can get away with this is everybody in the nuclear industry participated in it, and this is an assassination of every species on the planet. The only way the industry can do that is every academic, every nuclear scientist, every university, and every fucking media on the planet decided to cover it up. Or gobbled up by the globalists and then weaponized against you and your loved ones and the species and the future generations. And how the fuck is that acceptable? And I apologize for swearing, because once I start swearing, that's usually used against me. Oh, he's swearing, I'm not going to listen to him. Oh, he's swearing. And if you understood the truth, you fucking swear too. The tsunami ran right to the site. You find lots of people out there saying only 2 inches of water ran through that site, so there was no releases. There's thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of apologists, but there's only less than a handful of people out there being honest. And everybody out there that did look at this subject, wouldn't take them long to come to the conclusion, because I provide you so much information, there's no reason you can't be up and running in just a few shows. If you're a blogger, if you're a influencer, if you're a producer of documentation information, there's no documentations out there. There's no documentaries out there. Not one that's showing you the fact of Fukushima. There's not one. Let me explain that to you for a second. You do not want to eat the food from shithead Japan. This is the stump of reactor 4. That's the stump of reactor 3. There's not a nuclear scientist on the planet that looked at this and said the fuel pools in the reactor cores were intact or even near the building. There's not one. And how many come out and told you that? How many told documentary makers that, hey, you got to do a documentary on this because this is an event? Not one. Not one nuclear scientist on the entire planet has come out and disavowed that the fuel pools in the reactor cores were at the top of the buildings. Not one. Not one. And we're talking millions have all turned their backs on you. Not one. Is the most humiliating thing conceivable. Not one academic on the entire planet. There's not one documentary out there saying, hey, guess what? There is no fuel pools at the top of that building. Greenpeace, every time I put this picture, tweeted this picture to Greenpeace, they blocked me and took the picture down. Pinned the tail on the fuel pool. The fuel pools are at the top of the buildings. There is no building, let alone a top. And we're talking decades of reactor cores and the fuel pools. Each of these buildings, each of these reactor cores are about 100 Chernobyls because they're pure uranium, pure plutonium. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. It was a very small reactor. It was a brand new reactor. It didn't have fuel pools in the building, let alone at the top of the buildings. There's 2 at the top of each of the buildings at Fukushima, for instance. And the same thing with 71 reactors in the United States, the exact identical reactors. And if you want to have an event, that's where you would put the fuel pools. And the engineers should be arrested and then summarily executed for their crimes against humanity by putting the most dangerous toxic substance that can destroy. These are planet destroyers, not just country destroyers, but planet destroyers. I don't do what I'm doing because it's easy or it's fun. I'm doing it because nobody else will do it. Because our so-called anti-nuclear world, the anti-nuclear like Greenpeace and Beyond Nuclear, are the worst thing can happen to you. And if you look at how much money they raise every year, you're talking millions and millions, hundreds of millions for Greenpeace. Beyond Nuclear has got to be $8 or $9 million a year. Do you really think that Beyond Nuclear, Helen Caldicott and the rest of them has ever showed you that fucking picture? You think Arnie Gunnison ever said the fuel pools at the top of these buildings? Arnie made the racks for the fuel assemblies for the reactor cores in the fuel pools. And he's out there telling you they got the fuel out of the building, same as Helen Caldicott. And Helen Caldicott wrote 16 anti-nuclear books. And she has millions and millions and millions of dollars from that. Because her books are meant to lead you astray. Let me play a clip of Mrs. Tidy. I don't have any respect for Helen Caldicott after what she done. And Helen Caldicott has the platform to enlighten the population. She wrote 16 anti-nuclear books and never once come out and said the fuel pools were gone. In fact, the opposite. When she was asked, did the building look like that over there? And these are my 2 pictures, and that's the original video up there. When she was asked, does it really look like the building to your left, or does it look like to the building to the right? Do you know what she said? The Japanese are very tidy people.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
So how many people think that the top of this building here looks like that over there? And Dr. Helen Caldicott, a doctor, she's not stupid. She used to teach at Harvard. Medical school. She's not stupid. And for her to say it does, now he asked her.
Number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is...
Now that's reactor 4, but that's the official picture. This is the same official picture. Both of them are from TEPCO's website, by the way.
Said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
Yeah, but it doesn't. And she's done an interview hundreds of times where she's done the same thing. This is Arnie Gunnarsson. Arnie, is still out there promoting the fuel pools were taken at the top of the buildings. I fixed the audio before I deafen you.
Unit 4 was damaged twice. It was damaged by all of the earthquakes that occurred, and it was also damaged by a series of explosions over the first week or two of the accident. So the building is structurally weakened. Now, Tokyo Electric's acknowledged that. They went in.
So I'll play the video. He's going to say they went in. Let's go back a little snot. So the fuel pools, I put his video up there in the fuel pool. That's where the fuel pool is, at the top of the building. Look at the destruction of that building. If that was your 19-story apartment building and your apartment manager sent you that picture when you were on vacation, would you say put some fucking gyprock up there and shut up? No, you would look at the picture, you would say it's gone, right? Everything's gone. You would need anybody to tell you anything. And you don't need an engineering degree. Now he's saying that people TEPCO went into the nuclear meltdown at reactor 4 and put structural supports under the fuel pool, which is at the top of the buildings.
In May and June of last year. This is more than a year ago. And put an enormous number of extra structural supports directly under.
So the fuel pools is that red up there and the red over there, and this reactor's at the top of the building. So he's saying they went into the building where you can see it's gutted all the way to the ground and put structural supports in, and he's still out there. And the media, I know he done this one presentation with, there was 1,500 dentists at a convention in the United States, 1,500 dentists. And they had Arnie Gunnarsson there to talk about Fukushima. And then at the end of it, they all encouraged the 1,500 dentists to donate to Arnie Gunnarsson's company. And he went there and lied to every one of them. And then he was rewarded with you know, how hard is it for 1,500 dentists to donate $1,000 to Arnie Gunnarsson each? And he's put on a pedestal everywhere. And he works, I noticed him and Caldicott work in tandem with each other many times.
The fuel pool to keep the bottom of the pool from breaking through.
How can you go in a building that don't exist and put structural supports under a fuel pool that doesn't exist? Where do we draw the line? And they're still out there being invited. They're still out there when new people that are new to nuclear start looking up information. They're going to feed them Arnie Gunnarsson and Helen Caldicott. And it's insidious how many people attacked me over Arnie Gunnarsson. It clearly must have worked for him. And that they actually think of themselves, they act like they're good people. They know what they're doing is the most evilest thing imaginable. And they go around acting like they're good people, and there's all kinds of people there donating endless money to these people. The whole scenario is insane. But yet, here I am, I will go to fucking war. And I will win this war. I will take down this industry in no time at all. If I had a few foundations funding this, and we would do the research that would be unassailable that the world will come together as one in the context of destroying the nuclear industry and hold them accountable and deal with the nuclear waste instead of pretending, and that the future generation wouldn't look back in disgust at us, because that's what they're going to do if they actually exist. They're going to look at us with nothing but contempt. Not me or you, because we tried. But we were never given an opportunity, and we fought for every second. And all those research expeditions that we done were the most brutal times imaginable. It was really something, you know, that the nuclear industry was 100% predatory in what they done to me. You know, when I was out on the research expedition, what they done was set up over 10 PayPal accounts that were identical to mine. And that's why you'll see under my video in the very bottom of the descriptions is the actual link to my PayPal. Because if you go look it up, you're going to find 10 PayPal accounts. With my picture, my name. I've done everything to get to take them down. But they won't take them down. They have Facebook pages out there claiming that they're Dana, and they're not. And where I was even charged, had police show up at my door and charge me for statements made on Facebook that I don't even have a fucking Facebook page at that time. And there's no limit to their evil. It's how do we look ourselves in the eyes in the mirror without going after these fuckers every day? New type of Fukushima forecast shows radioactive cesium iodine over large sections of the United States and Canada. And, you know, I've been so sick, but do I ever give up for 1 second? I have no health at all, for Christ's sakes, but I never give up. 3 heart attacks, 7 stents put in. The day I got out of the hospital, I done a show that night to get the momentum started again to come back after this fucking industry. The reason I done 4 to 5 months at a time on the ocean is because if I was afraid that if I stopped and took a break, I would never have enough funds to get back out there, so I wouldn't come ashore just to get fuel and groceries and head back out. It's an extinction event, right? That's what the research expeditions clearly show. This is an extinction event. I will never lose the passion. I will never lose the drive. I've just lost the opportunities. Denied it by the nuclear industry so that their friends and families and loved ones don't realize that they're fucking scum, degenerate monsters. That's their biggest fear. That's their only fear. Oh, fuck, they don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about this planet. They don't care about the species. They hate them. This is a death cult, and its entire legacy is predicated upon deceit, dishonesty. So we went out and done research expeditions for 4 to 5 months a year, we being me and the people that supported me. And here's what we discovered. And there was nothing easy at any moment. It might look great to you. Make no mistake. There's the most heartless, the most desolate feeling is going out there and not finding a fucking species. And I spent years and years out there because Fukushima really fucking happened. The radioactive fallout is actually real. And that the species are exterminated. The species to your left, you'll never take those pictures again. The species were wiped out due to Fukushima radioactive fallout. And we know that because when I went back year after year, the species didn't recover. The species didn't come back. The species didn't repopulate the coastline. They didn't reseed the coastline. If you went down there and plowed in all these healthy species, the species from both sides and down deeper would have just filled up the gap. After 6 years, the species never come back. What the fuck does that mean? And I haven't got the patience to sugarcoat it sometimes. I apologize. Because the urgency is so fucking real, I don't think sugarcoating it is appropriate. I think that's a crime to sugarcoat what they fucking done. The species to your left, don't they matter? And can we live without those species? I can guarantee you we can't. and that their reign of terror needs to end, and you're the ones that can do it. And if you're not going to do it, find someone who's going to fucking do it, and let me know so I can go support them. Because I will support them thick and thin like you won't even imagine. Was it worth wiping out these species? Because the radioactive fallout actually happened and is still going on today. And pretending it's not happening is an illusion, because I went out there and I can guarantee you the buildings are gone. The radioactive fallout is something you need to, if you're not familiar with the subject, something you need to understand. So I come here and I go to war every single day. Even if I don't do a show, I'm gone to war. But I can really go to war against this industry. I have the ability and the knowledge and the drive to take this industry down. If I was able to do it. If I was given the opportunity, if I had foundations that would fund this operation, I will take this fucking operation apart. In less than a year, I will wreck this industry. There'll be no way to crawl back from it either. And I don't give a fuck if they kill me, as long as they educated enough for you. And I already done that, haven't I? And they have no right to exist. This nuclear industry has no right to exist. And the sadistic, degenerate, monstrous industry, hideous, these are terrorists, continue to grow food in the nuclear wasteland. And the food was banned by 55 countries and 14 prefectures. I highlighted it on a map of Japan. That's half the country. These are large prefectures. And the amount of food we're talking about is catastrophic to everybody. And they're so sadistic, they're growing food right alongside the 1-ton bags of radiation. Try making that up pre-Fukushima. To go in and pretend you're in a building that don't exist, you really think they done that because they were fucking bored? You really think the whole world and all the universities worldwide had to participate in that lie for them to get away with that? So they knew that they had the support of all the universities to go in and fake it, and that all the universities and all the media worldwide and governments would continue with the lie, would not call them on it. And we know that because we've been covering it. Nobody's ever called them on it. And when I put this picture together 10 years ago, I felt that we got them now. How can they get the building? And you know what? You know how many people reposted this picture? None. How is that even possible? And Greenpeace blocked me whenever I tweeted that picture at them, took the picture down. How come? Because Greenpeace is covering up too. And Greenpeace, you'll find links to Greenpeace on every mainstream media out there has a donate button to Greenpeace on their websites. The mainstream media has a donate button to Greenpeace on their websites. And Greenpeace blocked me on every one. On New Zealand, on Canada, United States, on Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, on fucking Australia. They blocked me everywhere. I took the picture down. Because I thought they can go to war, they can afford it, they got the money, they got the backing, they got the support, they got the people, they can do this, they can rally this. And when you read all the stories on Greenpeace, they're cutting your fucking throat. And they're laughing about it. And there's nothing funny about what's going on. Growing food in a nuclear wasteland and shipping it worldwide to poison you is why that poll exists. And should the entire world speak out against Japan shipping daily radioactive food from the nuclear wasteland? And they're insane if they don't. Okay, well that's it for me tonight. Unfortunately, when I get cranky, that's the cranky Dana you seen tonight. When I get cranky, it ain't going to get any better if I keep going. I'm just going to get more cranked. And I can get pretty rough. And appropriately so. And there's not a bird or an insect or an animal on the entire planet would fucking blame me. There's lots of humans will. And how can you not be upset? How does that actually work, I wonder? How can you not be upset? How can you not be indignant? How can you not be heartbroken? Because I can't switch off what I know and what I've seen and what I've done. I can never switch it off. And what I want to do, the only way I can switch it off is if I was able to open the gates of hell upon the nuclear industry, which is the population of this planet. And the population of this planet has every right to fucking know what's going on. And should the entire world speak out against the stupid fucking Japanese and the nuclear industry, and that are also shipping deadly radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland. They're shipping food from a nuclear wasteland. They're shipping food from a nuclear wasteland. And how is that even conceivable or possible? I'll never know. I'll never know. I can't comprehend the silence that I see worldwide. And I can't comprehend the fact that the nuclear industry still lies so much. Their lies are so... It's coordinated genocide by the nuclear industry, by academics, by nuclear scientists. It's a coordinated genocide. Well, it's even worse. It's a coordinated omnicide. It's a destruction of all the species and the biosphere, and all your fresh water and all your seawater. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain by going to war against this industry. That's a fact. The best thing you could ever do is to go to war against this nuclear industry. The most appropriate thing you can do is to go to war against this nuclear industry. The only option you have for your loved ones, your friends, your families, your children, and your future grandchildren is to go to war against this industry. And if you don't, you have no future, and they don't either. And what are you fucking waiting for? I know I'm not waiting. And I will not retract a single word that I've ever said about the nuclear industry because it's honest. Anyway, I'm burnt out. A long day. Another long day ahead of me tomorrow. Let's close the poll down. Let's call it a night. I'm going to try to relax and pass out. I'm burnt out and I'm heartbroken. And I'm sick of the world pretending this is not happening. Should the entire world speak out against the stupid, ridiculously monstrous, hideous, odious nuclear industry and Japan that are now shipping deadly radioactive food non-stop? They never stop shipping the food, on top of that, from a nuclear wasteland. There's no line to be drawn. You need to go to war. Not going to war will be the biggest mistake you ever made. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see everybody. I don't know if that's too loud. Is that too loud? We'll see everybody tomorrow night. I'll calm down. That's enough time for me to calm down. I can't guarantee you that, you know that. If you make it this far, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. We'll see everybody on the next show tomorrow night, where we call out Japan for radioactive food. I know it's overdue. I should have done a video about it a long time ago. I was a bit lazy and didn't get it done. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody next time.